The first thing I'd like to deal with really is the issue of perception, which was raised in the very beginning of this seminar. I think that perceptions are always very difficult to deal with. More so because perceptions, they feed into whatever one wants to believe according to one's convenience at a given time. The second issue relates to the disconnect, which was also raised this morning. And I'd like to say that we take responsibility for whatever disconnect, whatever poor coordination and that happens in government. We do take responsibility of that, because we say to ourselves, we are still a young nation growing, so we take responsibility only for ensuring that we learn the lessons and we improve our communication, we improve our positions as government. We make sure that when we speak from the same platform because we believe in the same commitments. The basis for South Africa's foreign policy really started with that understanding in the African National Congress that there's international solidarity, we need to continue that. But of course there's another angle to that. Today we get accused in our foreign policy approach that we do not think about our own internal dynamics, we do not think about our own internal interests, and we get led by the fact that we still think we owe some people out there something because they supported us in our struggle. I would like to just say something needs to be put in perspective and straight, whether it's during the time of former President Nelson Mandela, the time of Thabo Mbeki, and the time of Jacob Zuma. There are certain principles that underpin South Africa's foreign policy. They remain like that. They will be like that for a very long time because South Africa believes in freedom. These are commitment to promotion of human rights. We will not waver. We will not move from that principle. A commitment to promotion of democracy, a commitment to justice and international law in the conduct of relations between nations, and this for us is very important, as all the others are important. A commitment to international peace and to internationally agreed upon mechanisms for the resolution of conflicts. A commitment to promote the African agenda in world affairs, and a commitment to economic development through regional and international cooperation in an interdependent world. Now, the mandate that we have at all times, whether again it's with the three past presidents, the mandate, the policy mandate, is always informed by our history, but also informed by our own national interests. All the presidents and ministers since 1994 have made sure that these principles that we are talking about are adhered to. Yes, somewhere along the line, sometimes we would have very challenging issues in terms of how do we take, what decisions do we take, and how do those decisions impact on our foreign policy. Going back to the policy discussions as far as the department is concerned, and as far as foreign policy, maybe not even just the department, because if I say the Department of Foreign Affairs, I narrow it to one department. Foreign Affairs is the prerogative, obviously the decisions, the major decisions have to be taken by the president as the person who is responsible, with a Department of International Relations, which is the one that on day-to-day basis deals with the implementation of the very documents that were raised here. But the Department of Trade and Industry, the Department of Tourism, and a number of other departments do deal with international relations, because those are departments that implement, that deal with our relations with other nations outside of South Africa. Now, as I already indicated, the guiding principles, one of those guiding principles that I said was a commitment to promote the African agenda in world affairs. In promoting the African continent, our responsibility as South Africa, because by the way, we should always keep in mind that we live here in Africa. We are not somewhere else. We belong to this continent. Sometimes we have tendencies of thinking that, you know, we are better than this, we are better than Namibia, we are better than so-and-so. That's neither here nor there. The bottom line is that President Thabo Mbeki used to many often say, we as South Africa, we cannot live in prosperity and peace in a sea of poverty and in a sea of conflict. That is what we still believe in even today. So the African agenda for us is a priority. It is a priority simply because the development of this continent is interconnected. It is for this reason that our foreign policy anchors itself a lot more on the African continent, because we believe that the integration of the African continent, the unity in the African continent is of major importance, not only to South Africa, but to the world as a whole. Now, within the agenda of the African continent, there are a number of issues which we are engaged in. One starts with SADC as a region and the integration of SADC, both at the level of economic, political, and social, including cultural, because we have an affinity with all these countries that are in the region. But also, as a country, we believe that united we stand and divided we fall. Because as a continent, we need to engage at a global level. We believe that strengthening of SADC is of major importance to us. Coupled with that is our commitment to ensuring that the rest of the regional community areas of the continent, we talk to each other, we engage with each other, because our interests would never just be SADC alone. We prioritize SADC because we are within SADC. But you know that those regions, you have COMESA, you have the Eastern Community. Those are the communities that we engage with. And how do we engage with these communities? We engage through the organization today that is called the African Union, which used to be the OAU in the past. And also, maybe I might just say to you, one of the things that we would like to make sure happens is that Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, we are still campaigning for her, we are still lobbying for her to be the commissioner of the AU. I'm sure you've been reading in the papers about how this is supposed to be dividing the African continent, how there are just certain principles why we think that Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, we should continue to have her as our candidate. One, Southern Africa has never had an opportunity to take that position of the commission. Secondly, there is a principle of rotation, which is agreed upon by all the countries within the AU. So we take those two principles. Coupled with that principle is our commitment to the African Union, but also our commitment in ensuring that that is an institution, because it's an African institution, it must be strong. Because it's an African institution, it is one that needs to be people that have to be in that that have to lead that institution have to be people with a strong character, has to be people that have a stronger commitment to the continent. And Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma is one of those. She was a Minister of Foreign Affairs for 10 years. She was part and parcel of the group of people that worked towards the transformation of the OAU to the AU. She was amongst those that brought the launch of the AU in South Africa, as Comrade Aziz Pahad said earlier. And besides, we think that as South Africa, we are a new nation, and therefore if you look at the positions at global level, you find that there's very few of us, South Africans, who are occupying key strategic positions in these organizations. Whether you go to the AU itself, or whether you go to the UN, whether you go to the World Trade Organization, all these big international organizations, there are very few South Africans who are in key decision-making structures. We are hoping that as you, as students, tomorrow, you will see yourselves as those people who will be in those institutions leading in political discussions, but also leading in the debate of transformation, transforming the whole world. Within our commitment also to the African continent is our belief, the African Renaissance that Comrade Pahad spoke about. I will not go into detail with that because he elaborated on that. Safe to say that we also believe there is a challenge that we face in the African continent, is that of peace, security, and stability. We have engaged ourselves as South Africa in the resolution of the conflict in the Côte d'Ivoire, and I still say what Comrade Aziz Pahad said about our correctness in analysis of the situation in Côte d'Ivoire still remains the same. Because even if you have a president today and they say this president is accepted by everybody, there's no peace yet in the Côte d'Ivoire. We have engaged ourselves even in Liberia. We were part and parcel of assisting the situation there. We have engaged as South Africa in conflict resolution in Burundi and Rwanda. We have engaged in the DRC. We continue to engage even today. We have been of assistance to the DRC in making sure that they build up to stability. It's not where we would like to see it, quite frankly, because you still have in the Eastern DRC a conflict going on. You still have women and children running away from gun-toting men. Here next door in Zimbabwe, we have a problem. And I am one of those people who are engaged as part of the facilitation team in resolving the conflict that is ongoing in Zimbabwe. So in general, in the African continent, we believe that until such time that there is peace, security, and stability, all the decisions that we take around the continent will not be able to implement, because one of the reasons why people look at us as South Africa and admire us, it is a few reasons. One, there's respect for human rights. The same things that I spoke about in the beginning as the principle for South Africa, we have them in South Africa. Two, we have institutions in South Africa that are institutions supporting democracy. Four, and those institutions are protected by the Constitution. We think that in the African continent, until such time that the majority of the countries in the continent can claim the same, where the ordinary people can be able to have institutional recourse whenever they have problems, we believe that we have a long way to go in dealing with the continent. Another area which I think is of importance for us, particularly in the new environment, is the strengthening of South-South relations. In the past, there was always Europe, Americas, that always used to be directing the whole world, which way it has to go. Today, we have what is called emerging economies. These emerging economies, obviously, we would like to strengthen our relationship with them, but at the same time, we also need to make sure that when we strengthen our relations with China, when we strengthen our relation with India, we don't find ourselves as a continent changing people who are coming in to dig deep holes in the continent and go away and leave us with those deep holes. But the advantage we have with these countries in the south is that they almost come from the same environment where we come from. And therefore we believe that in engaging with them, they will relate to us much more differently than the others. We also think that it's important for us to strengthen our relations with the formations in the north. But one other last area which I think is very important for us that I will conclude with is our participation in the global system of governance. We have been calling for multilateral institutions to transform. We've been calling for the transformation of the UN. It's an uphill battle, because if you think of the fact that where exactly are we within the UN, particularly in decision-making structures of the UN, we still have a very long way to go. We also need to strengthen our relations, obviously, with the Americas and the Caribbean and all. And I think that, and Europe, I think the documents that were created here, Tom Wheeler says they are good documents, but they do not show exactly how they are going to be implemented. As I said earlier, we are still a young nation, we are a learning nation. What we believe is important is to have the principle, is to have these documents where we can always refer to and begin to develop our implementation. And also I'd like to say in conclusion, these documents that we have, we are actually living them already, because our participation in the AU, our having bilateral relations with different countries, our participation in the United Nations, we are participating on the basis of these policy documents that we have. And we hope that as we advance our democracy, we will also even be able to do a better job than we are doing now. It is a fact that we still have weaknesses in our system, but we are sure that our systems will improve. The more we get exposed to what is happening outside in the world, the more we are going to be one day much more perfect than we are.